Now on set, Guy Benson, host of the Guy Benson Radio Show and Fox News contributor, and Roma Daravi, former White House Deputy Comms Director. Welcome, kids. Let me put the permitting aside for a minute, okay? Unless you have a burning desire. Guy Benson, the Commitment to America came out today. I want to get your take on it. And the big question is, will it be politically effective? Will it push the Republican cavalry over the line?
I think overall it's good. I think that they were very careful about how to roll this out, what to put in it, what to leave out. We've seen a few little, let's say, spasms of drama on the Senate side with a plan that the NRSC chief had put out and then clashing a little bit with McConnell. I think they have sought to avoid that here on the House side. They tried to make a splash. They had their event today. I think for them to have a proactive agenda that they can point to, and if people decide to look it up, I think a lot of it is pretty unobjectionable. You know, Democrats will say we disagree, but I think that they've been pretty strategic about this. I'm not sure ultimately the Republicans' bullet point plan is going to make that big of a difference in this political environment, but it is good to have at least something you can point to that says we're not just against the mess that's happening right now under one-party rule. Yeah. It's a pretty good message.
No, I like that.
But we have something else here that we're offering as an alternative.
We like positive agendas. And look, the headliners here is on the economy and inflation. I mean, I'm just looking at it. And crime, which I think are the two big issues. And so, as Guy said, it's good to have a positive agenda. But here's it. Biden's saying, and yet Janet Yellen saying the same thing. Here's Biden today says, we need to kill the filibuster in order to pass this federal abortion act, okay, which would go right up to the bitter end, right, partial birth, even after the baby is alive. And they're all saying, Biden has said this, Yellen has said this, others have said this, they can't wait the agenda to finish tax hikes on corporations, on small business, and on well-to-do individuals. So the stakes are pretty high, Roma Daravi.
Look, I think the Democrats do one thing very well, and that's reading from the same transcript. They know how to talk about the same thing over and over again, such as abortion, in order to get their base fired up. What we're seeing here is the House Republicans have gotten in line. They have their priorities. It's the economy, it's the border, it's crime, it's schools, it's safety, it's freedom, really, is what it is. So I'm very excited to see that we have this positive, very clear, concise message that's being shared to the American people, but it's not gonna be the only thing that gets us over the finish line, right? You're gonna see two very important things over the next couple months happen. Number one, Donald J. Trump will be on the congressional campaign trail. And number two, the congressional members will be reading from this playbook. So those things I think will make very clear to the American people what their choices are. You can continue with what's been happening over the last year and a half, 2 years now, which is terrible, or you can read from this new playbook, safety, security, economic prosperity. Your children can go to school and learn not that there are thousands of different genders, but that there are two.
The parents will have
the parents will have a say in the classroom, right? So
I think these are fairly important things. They're not new things. We've been talking about them for quite a while. But if they're all singing from the same hymnal, that's got to be a good thing.
Unity of purpose, right? Coherence, these are good things in politics. I think that the education piece is really important to pause on for a moment. You say it's a good thing, it's helped in the past. It was the issue in 2021 that got Glenn Youngkin elected. Yep. He did a great job on other issues, but what put him over the top was anger over the schools. And a point that I've been making now for weeks, I had Youngkin on the radio show this week, saying, hey, I was concerned Republicans were not focusing on that issue nearly enough because we have not had a national referendum election on what these teachers unions and Democrats did to our kids in this country for a year and a half. This is the first national election where parents and others can render a verdict on that. And for Republicans, I get it. Inflation, crime, border, they should absolutely hammer on those. But to leave the education piece out of it, I think would be a huge mistake. And for them to focus on it the way they are in this plan, I think that's encouraging. I hope that it's one of the closing arguments that Republicans make to voters.
I like that a lot, Guy. You know, we had Claudia Tenney and Beth Van Duyne, two very strong congresswomen on the GOP side. And I raised that very issue. I said, I don't want it to get lost in the fine print. It's not the headline, but the parental education influence in the schools has got to be very important. And I call it a sleeper issue. And they both agreed. I mean, we talked about it for quite some time. And I reckon that you're absolutely right. Look, we got a minute left, kids. I just want to ask you, this is an insane story from the Washington Times this morning. The Postal Service has been surveying protesters, particularly with pro-gun, anti-Biden agendas. There's something called the Internet Covert Operations Program, ICOP.
I don't like cops, though.
ICOP, yeah, ICOP. Now, I mean, I didn't know any of this. I didn't. What is that? Is this part of the Post Service is now part of national security surveillance? I don't understand this. It's a horrible story, and they're going after. As you might guess, it's mostly people of conservative persuasion. Roma, did you know about this? And what do you think about it?
I'd like to know a little bit more, but on first glance, it seems like they may have other things they can focus on, like getting our mail delivered on time, making sure things aren't lost, making sure there aren't explosives in envelopes being sent to Trump family members, right? Making sure that we're safe and secure in our mail system.
Not going bankrupt every other year, which
Maybe
they do, and we have to bail them out.
Making sure that ballots aren't being lost in the mail. It seems like a whole lot of things they could focus on. I don't know what this is.
ICOP, Internet Covert Operations Program. The U.S. Postal Service monitored protesters across the country, snooping on Americans, focused on issues involving guns and President Biden's elections, according to records obtained by the Washington Times. We'll look at this some more. This is kind of one of these shock things. Where did this come from? That's the way I look at it. Anyway, Roma Daravi, Guy Benson, thank you very much. Appreciate it.